Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. Got a big show lined up for you. Let's get right on into it. All right, folks, we got the Calipari watch. We don't know if he's going to get fired today, tomorrow, or if he's going to keep his job. We've also got an NCAA update with the VOLS, Creighton, and everybody else. There's still 16 teams involved. We'll do that. And we need to talk about Greg Sankey. He has got to hush.
Man's got to know his limitations.
He thinks he runs everything, and I understand that. When you run the SEC, you think you're the big dog. But there are other conferences and other teams in the world, and what he wants to do with the NCAA basketball tournament, it's not going to work. So we're going to get into all that today. All right, folks, all anybody's talking about in Kentucky is John Calipari right now, and here a story in A Sea of Blue asks the question, will Kentucky make an announcement today? Says it's been over 72 hours since Kentucky they got beat. They got beat by Oakland. And it says it's led to nonstop speculation on the future of head coach Calipari. It says if Big Blue Nation had a vote, the majority feels like Calipari would be leaving town. I can tell you all the media is ready for him to go. You've seen it with Kentucky Sports Radio. There's A Sea of Blue. And they cover basketball heavy. Understand, this isn't football. This is their big sport in Kentucky, and they care deeply about it. And they can't understand how a team with the level of talent that Kentucky had, and they actually had a really nice combination of five-star freshmen, and they had some seniors that were excellent. So this was a very disturbing loss for them, to say the least.
You have failed me for the last time.
It talks about the lifetime contract that Mike Barnhart had given him just 5 seasons ago. And it's a $33 million payout that they'd have to come up with to get rid of him. And they've got that kind of money, but you hate to do that because if you give him $33 million, it's over the next 5 years, by the way. It's not all one lump sum. But you're also going to have to pay a new coach, and you got to have NIL money. So your boosters are probably going to get worn out having to pay. But will they continue ponying up the dough if Calipari stays? So it's a very difficult little situation. The other question is, who would you bring in? Now, if you took a poll in Kentucky, it would probably be Bruce Pearl. I'm hearing his name quite a bit, but I don't know that Pearl's going to leave Auburn. He's also got a lifetime contract. So there's a lot going on with this. Let's see what else they got to say. It says Kentucky Sports Radio Matt Jones said on Sunday night that the decision could come as soon as today, elaborating that Calipari's been in New Jersey, I think that's his hometown, since the loss to Oakland. And it says it's safe to say not many people know exactly what will happen, but Jones is as well connected as any member of the media when it comes to UK sports. And it says it wouldn't be a surprise if Barnhart had a conversation with Calipari first. Now, Calipari's a pretty smooth talker. I can go ahead and tell you he's used to taking the bullets. And I can also tell you he will not settle for any lesser amount. It'll either be $33 million or you keep him as coach. He's not going to negotiate that. So I would expect something to happen over the next probably 72 hours. If he lasts the next 2 or 3 days, he'll probably stay as Kentucky's head coach. Because typically what will happen right now, everybody's in an uproar in Kentucky. Everybody's distraught. They're fresh off that loss to Oakland, which was a disaster. And we'll talk more about that here in a minute when we discuss Greg Sankey's comments and what he wants to do with the NCAA basketball tournament. But they're really hurting up there right now, and they want some butts.
Catch twice! I want some butts!
And Calipari's is the one they're targeting right now. But we'll be keeping an eye on this because if it does happen, there's going to be a chain reaction because then you'll have to have a coach come in to replace him, and that could cause a whole domino effect. As you've seen with football, it always happens that way too. All right, let's get into this next story, and that's the Greg Sankey thing. Now, Sankey, since he's the king of the SEC pretty much, he's been getting his way with a lot of stuff, especially when it comes to football, when it comes to the playoff. He's moved from 4 teams to 12 teams, which I'm fine with. I think most people are fine with that. I know there's some that aren't. But he's also brought in Texas and Oklahoma. There's talk that there may be some ACC schools coming to the Southeastern Conference. The Big Ten has been scooping up some great teams as well. And we already know it's going to be the Big Two. You're going to have the Big Ten and the SEC, and they're going to be the dominant forces when it comes to college football. But Greg Sankey has kind of gone over the line a little bit here. He wants the mid-majors and these small schools that qualify for the NCAA tournament. not to be included in that tournament. He wants more of the middle of the road SEC and Big Ten teams to be put into the 68-team pool and have them in there and not these small schools like an Oakland or a Yale.
You sure about that?
Etc. Well, after this weekend, that looks pretty foolish because the SEC struggled. We've gone from 8 teams down to 2, but we had the 2 biggest upsets in the whole tournament. And that was, of course, Oakland versus Kentucky and then Yale versus Auburn. And those were monster upsets because Oakland, I think, was 14th and Yale was 13th, and Auburn and Kentucky were 3 and 4. So those were monster upsets. And then on top of that, we had 3 more upsets. So the SEC has not had a single win where they were ranked worse than the team they played, and we've had 5 upsets. So it really looks to me like they ought to leave it alone. And plus, we've already got 68 teams. He wants to go to like 80 or 72. We don't need to do that. We've got plenty. 68 teams is more than I would have had. I would be at like 32, 64 at the tops. 68, I don't even know why they did that. But anyway, I do think the mid-majors and those small qualifiers should be allowed to get in the tournament. I think that makes sense, especially given the fact that you have these Cinderellas every year. And it's hard to say they don't deserve to be there when they go in and beat 2 of your best teams out of your conference. So I think he needs to hush about taking out the mid-majors and the small conference champions. I don't think that's a good idea.
How about no, you crazy Dutch bastard?
All right, now let's talk about the upcoming game, the VOLS versus Creighton, and then we'll get into a full NCAA update. Now, this is going to be a heck of a ball game. Creighton is a very good club. They're strong from the top to the bottom. They've got about 8 guys that they play, 6 primarily, and all of them can score. Every one of them is a good shooter. They play good defense, and every one of them can shoot free throws. So this is a quality club from top to bottom as far as their key players. And we'll take a look at those guys. Their best player is this Baylor guy. He scores about 18 points a game, and he's also their leading rebounder. He plays the guard position, but he's 6'7". So he's an outstanding player. They've got another guy by the name of Alexander, another guard. He scores almost 18 points. And then they've got a third fellow by the name of Kalkbrenner. He scores about 17. So their 3 primary players are the guys that you're going to have to deal with. But then they've got 2 additional players that also score quite a few points, but not nearly as many, Ashworth and Miller. And as you can see, they pretty much play 6 guys. And they have a couple of guys that come in and help out. But you're going to see this one group playing almost all the minutes. When you look right here, an average of 36 minutes, 37, 34, that is a lot of minutes for 3 guys. You know, we get upset because Ziegler plays like 37 minutes a game on average because he's such a key guy for us, and he played 40 minutes in the game against Texas. So they pretty much rely on these key guys, and it's not going to be easy to get them into foul trouble either because they know that, and they play very smart. I think this is a tremendous matchup and should be a fun game. Dalton Knecht needs to have a really good game against them. That will be the key. He's going to have to score probably 30 points for us to win this ball game. If he scores in the 15 to 20, that means either we're going to lose or it means Triple J, Ziegler, Adu, and maybe even Santiago, who used to be our best 3-point shooter. Those guys are going to have a really good game. I expect Creighton to hit a bunch of threes. They hit like 15 against Oregon, which is the team I would have preferred us to play. They were obviously ranked much higher or lower, depending on how you look at it. But this is the team that we were supposed to play, which is Creighton. And we're going to go into a full NCAA update, but I think this is a great matchup. And the Vols will probably be favored by a couple of points, but to me, this is a toss-up. And no matter who wins this ball game, they got to go up against an absolute juggernaut as well. So this weekend's going to be super interesting. So let's get into this full NCAA update. All right, so we're down to the Sweet 16. You watch Texas A&M. They were the 3rd team in the SEC still remaining. They got beat by Houston, but they gave them a darn good game. So I got to give A&M some credit. And Houston's going to be playing Duke. NC State beat Oakland. It was supposed to be Kentucky, but we talked about that. And NC State will be playing Marquette. That's a number 11 seed. So NC State's having a great tournament. I don't know if they can get past Marquette, though. Here's Purdue. They absolutely destroyed Utah State. And I was watching that game in the first 10 minutes. It was tied. I was going, well, Utah State might give them a little bit of a game. I turned it off and went to another game, came back 10 minutes later, and Purdue was up by 20 points. And they've got that monster in the middle who is just about unstoppable. Nobody in college has figured out how to deal with him. And we've already played Purdue once, and they beat us because we couldn't stop that big guy. Well, they got to play Gonzaga. And Gonzaga is a very good team. So that'll be an interesting game, but I would think Purdue will win that. Okay, now we're going to come on down here to Creighton in Tennessee. You saw that unbelievable overtime game, double overtime against Oregon, and Creighton came through. We barely beat Texas, even though we should have beaten them by 20 points. We shot the ball horribly. 12% from three is the worst I think we've ever shot the ball. And I got sent a text that it's the worst shooting percentage in the history of the NCAA tournament where a team actually won. The other 67 times where a team shot as low as we did, they lost.
So I got that going for me, which is nice.
So we're 1 of 67. So we're very fortunate to still be in this. Our defense was impeccable, and that helped us a lot. But again, we're going up against Creighton and then probably Purdue. So we've got a very difficult weekend ahead of us. But I can tell you this much, Tennessee is good enough to win both those games. They just flat out are. They're a good quality, mature team, and they've got one of the best players in the country in Dalton Connect. He's going to have a very good game.
He's good. He's real good.
The name is Dalton.
Now let's go over here to the other side. We've got UConn, number 1, against San Diego State. They did beat Yale. They've handled them no problem. Auburn's got to be kicking themselves. Then we've got Illinois versus Iowa State. Iowa State has been hot. They've really been playing well, so that should be a very good matchup. Here we've got our second SEC team that's remaining. That's Alabama against North Carolina. Alabama's going to have to be hot. They're going to have to hit their shots. They were not hot against Grand Canyon. They should have easily beaten them. They did beat them by 11, but they were cold in the first half, and they started making some in the second half. But this is going to be a heck of a ball game. If it's high scoring, I think Alabama can beat them. If it's not, and Alabama struggles from the three, North Carolina will whoop up on them. And then lastly, we've got Clemson hanging in there. They're going to be playing Arizona. I got to give Clemson some credit, man. They beat Baylor, who's a very good team, and they're playing well. This is rare for Clemson to get into the Sweet 16, so good for them. If they can beat Arizona, they might be the Cinderella. They could definitely be the Cinderella. So there's your update on the NCAA, and Tennessee will be playing Friday really late. It's going to be like a 10:15 Eastern Standard Time game. 10:15. What the crap?
This sucks.
Yeah, it really sucks.
So I'll be up late that night, that's for sure. That's Friday night again. So there's a lot going on with NCAA basketball right now. We're watching for Calipari, see what happens there. Greg Sankey needs to just hush. And then we got the Sweet 16 this weekend, which is very exciting. I couldn't be happier for Rick Barnes. He has taken so much grief over losing in March, and now he's made his second Sweet 16 in a row. If he could get to Elite 8, that would really be great. I think a lot of people would get off his back about not going far in March because, look, this March Madness, a lot of it's luck of the draw. It's getting hot at the right time. Crap, you never know. I mean, look at the upsets that we've already seen. Did anybody think that Yale would beat Auburn or Oakland would beat Kentucky? There's just no way. And that somehow they've done it. So anyway, we'll be keeping track of all this. If you like this content, be sure to hit that like button. Let's continue to cover all this college football and basketball news. If you've not subscribed, it's right here on your right. Hit this little button. It won't cost you a dime. It would help me out. I'd appreciate it. And right over here's the most recent video YouTube thinks you'll enjoy based on the algorithm. And you folks know I don't really understand the algorithm so well.
Who are you? I am the architect. I created the Matrix. I've been waiting for you.
But anyway, I'd appreciate it if you hit it. And we'll see you next time on Sports Talk Jay.